A woman went into the jungle with her husband to see wild animals. On the way, they encountered a lion, ran away, leaving her behind. Terrified, the woman slowly stepped back. Just before the lion could attack her, a young man from the jungle suddenly appeared and saved her life. Impressed by his bravery, the woman went with him to his home. What happened next between them? Let's find out. The movie begins with a plane crash in the jungles of Africa. A young boy named George is left all alone in the wilderness. The survivors search for him, but are unable to find him. By fate, George is raised by a talking gorilla named Ape, whom he considers his brother. 25 years later, George has become the king of the jungle. He lives in a treehouse with Ape. Over time, the locals begin telling stories about him, calling him the White Ape. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, we are introduced to a wealthy young woman named Ursula Stanhope. She is traveling with Mr. Kwame, a local guide, and 3 porters. Suddenly, her fiancé Lyle arrives, tracking her down with the help of 2 hunters, Max and Thor. That night, everyone sets up camp. Lyle begins preparing to leave the next day, but Ursula wants to stay longer. She's eager to climb the mountains to see the great apes, gorillas. At this point, Max insists that the next day they will go up the mountains to see the mysterious white ape. Curious, Ursula asks Mr. Kwame about it. He explains that the white ape is about 7 feet tall, incredibly strong, and the true king of the jungle, almost as powerful as a lion. Hearing this makes Ursula even more excited, while Lyle dismisses it as nonsense. The next day, Mr. Kwame leads everyone toward the mountain peak through a dense jungle. Elsewhere, jungle monkeys beat drums, bongo sounds, to alert George that strangers are approaching. While crossing a weak bridge, Lyle deliberately shakes it, causing one of the porters to fall. The porter survives, but is seriously injured. Back at camp, Lyle criticizes the guide, which angers the porters. To calm them down, he offers cigars, but they mock him in their own language, which he doesn't understand. Later, Lyle tries to impress them by lighting a cigar using a gun, which scares them even more. He then takes out a camera and shows them their pictures, making everyone happy, until one porter takes the camera and starts taking funny pictures of Lyle, mocking him. Annoyed, Lyle decides to take Ursula alone into the jungle to find the white ape. Ursula warns him that it's dangerous, but Lyle doesn't listen. As they walk deeper into the jungle, they hear strange noises and stop. Ursula grows nervous and signals Lyle to stay quiet. Lyle assumes someone is trying to scare them. Suddenly, a lion attacks. Panicking, Lyle runs away, leaving Ursula behind. He even trips and falls while escaping. Just then, George swings in on a vine and confronts the lion, fighting it to save Ursula. Hidden in the bushes, Ursula watches the intense battle. Sometimes the lion has the upper hand, and sometimes George does. The other jungle animals seem entertained by the fight, but Ursula is terrified. After a fierce struggle, George manages to scare the lion away. But moments later, the lion turns back toward Ursula. Acting quickly, George grabs a vine and swings her away to safety. However, while talking, he doesn't watch where he's going, and Ursula accidentally crashes into a tree and faints. George becomes worried, as he has never seen a woman faint before. When Lyle regains consciousness, he sees Ursula Stanhope and George together. Frightened, he immediately turns and starts running away again. But after a few steps, he falls hard to the ground. Meanwhile, George carries Ursula to his home in the jungle. By the time they arrive, she has already regained consciousness, though she is still weak and confused. George safely brings her into his treehouse. On the other side, Lyle tries to save his reputation by making up a false story. He claims that the white ape attacked him. To make it look believable, he tears his clothes and pours cherry juice on himself to resemble blood. The next morning, Ursula wakes up in George's treehouse. As soon as she opens her eyes, Ape offers her breakfast. Seeing a gorilla serving food shocks her so much that she screams in fear. George quickly brings her some bananas and gently asks how she's feeling. Overwhelmed, Ursula begins to think she's dreaming. A Tarzan-like man, a book-reading gorilla, and full service in a treehouse. The shock is too much, and she faints again. Since George has never seen a human woman before, he doesn't understand what's happening. Ape explains to him that Ursula is a female human, just like him. Ursula is still a little afraid of Ape, so she pretends to faint again. When George carries her to the bed, she suddenly wakes up and asks his name. George tells her his name and casually calls Ape a monkey, which annoys Ape. Meanwhile, Ursula's team heads into the jungle to search for her. Lyle lies again, saying he couldn't save her because there were too many apes. Hearing this, the others make fun of him, since they already know he is a coward. Back at the treehouse, when Ursula wakes up again, garden. She notices a wooden lift and uses it to go down to the ground. There she sees George. She thanks him sincerely and asks for his help in finding her companions. As a gesture of gratitude, she gives him a flower, which makes Ape feel a bit jealous. George promises to help her and introduces her to his friend Shep, a large elephant. However, Ursula assumes Shep is George's dog. She happily walks up to him and greets him, feeling delighted. In the jungle, George throws a piece of tree bark and tells Shep to fetch it, just like a dog. Seeing this, Ursula is completely amazed. After that, George and Ursula set out to find Lyle and the rest of the team, while on the other side, Lyle and his group are also searching for Ursula. As George and Ursula continue wandering through the jungle, evening falls, but they still don't find her group. Spending time with George, Ursula slowly begins to forget about her companions. George introduces Ursula to a bird named Tookie. Tookie tells George that some small monkeys are in trouble. Without hesitation, George immediately rushes off to help them. Seeing this, Ursula is deeply impressed by George's kind and caring nature. As George continues forward, he notices a small monkey that looks very cute. The monkey whispers something into his ear, and seeing this makes Ursula Stanhope smile with happiness. The monkey is actually telling George about his fellow monkeys. After that, they sit down and rest for a while. George begins to like Ursula and tries to impress her. Kwame and his team discover a large footprint in the mud, which makes them believe it belongs to the mysterious white ape. As they spend more time together, George teaches Ursula how to swing on vines. Ursula tries, but after a few swings, she loses balance and falls to the ground. George rushes toward her to help, but while looking at her, he accidentally crashes into a tree. Seeing this, Ursula bursts out laughing. A little later, George is back at his treehouse while Ape prepares breakfast for everyone. George asks Ape for help in winning Ursula's heart, but Ape doesn't like the idea. Instead, he gives George some strange and awkward advice that would definitely make Ursula upset if he followed it. On the other side, Ursula's team has now reached deep into the jungle, but there is still no sign of her. One of the team members even announces a reward for anyone who can help find her quickly, hoping that the promise of money will speed things up. Later, while relaxing near a waterfall, Ursula thanks George for giving her the most special adventure of her life. Just then, George starts making weird and funny faces, thinking that following Ape's advice will impress her. However, Ursula finds it strange and uncomfortable. She walks away, leaving George feeling sad and confused. That night, George talks to Ape again and tells him that his formula didn't work and that Ursula wasn't impressed. Ape then tries to explain things by showing him something in a book. Meanwhile, Ursula, who is standing above and watching them, begins to understand what George really feels for her. Later that night, Ursula gives George her ring as a way of thanking him for saving her life. She feels truly happy being with him, but George is too shy to express his feelings. Around them, the jungle animals begin making music. George invites Ursula to dance. At first, she refuses because she feels shy, but George shows her that he isn't afraid of anything and reminds her that there's no one else around in the jungle. Eventually, she agrees, and the two of them happily dance together for a long time. The next morning, Max, Lyle, and Thor arrive near George's treehouse. Lyle is walking behind them, but suddenly he insists on leading the group because he believes he is the richest and most important person there. However, as soon as he steps forward, he slips and falls into some dirt, getting his face messy. The others laugh at him. After a while, Lyle hears Ursula's voice and starts calling out to her, but one of his companions quickly tells him to stay quiet. Soon, they discover the treehouse. Unable to control himself, Lyle runs forward, calling Ursula's name. When he finally sees her, he tries to kiss her, but she stops him and reminds him that he abandoned her in front of the lion. At that moment, Max and Thor try to shoot Shep, but Ape shouts and warns him to run away. When they realize that Ape can speak like a human, they come up with a plan to capture him and make money. Meanwhile, George rushes in to save Ape, but during the chaos, Lyle accidentally shoots George. Ursula quickly takes George in her private jet to San Francisco so he can receive proper medical treatment. Later, Max and Thor are released from jail, but Lyle, after the porters testify against him, is sent to prison in Africa. Afterward, Max and Thor plan to capture Ape again and display him in a show in Las Vegas. When George arrives in San Francisco, he is amazed by the city and becomes very excited. As soon as he reaches home, he goes out onto the balcony and starts making jungle-like sounds, waking up the neighbors. The next morning, Ursula's friend Betsy arrives and is shocked to see George. At that moment, George is wearing Ursula's dress, which surprises Betsy even more. She suggests that he should get some proper clothes, so they all go shopping and buy him a stylish suit from Armani. While walking around the city, Ursula's mother Beatrice Stanhope spots them together. She also learns that Lyle is in jail, which makes her very worried. She tries to contact Ursula, but George answers the phone and shouts loudly, scaring her. Ursula tells George to stay at home while she goes to work. She later visits her father with her friend, but is surprised to see that her father is hosting a party to celebrate her and Lyle's supposed return. Meanwhile, George gets bored at home and decides to explore the city. He climbs up the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge and notices a parasailer stuck in trouble. Without hesitation, he goes to rescue the person, and the entire incident quickly becomes news. When Ursula sees this on TV, she panics and rushes to the bridge. After saving the man, George lands safely on a boat where Ursula is waiting for him. The two embrace each other, and when Beatrice sees this on television, she becomes furious. Back in the jungle, Max and Thor manage to knock Ape unconscious. Before losing consciousness, Ape orders Tookie to find George. Max and Thor then lock Ape in a cage and set off to take him to the city. Meanwhile, George advises Ursula to tell her parents the truth about Lyle. On the day of her engagement, Ursula finally confesses everything that happened in the jungle and clearly says that she no longer wants to marry Lyle. Hearing this, Beatrice becomes very angry and firmly refuses to cancel the wedding. Her father, however, remains calm and understanding. When Ursula tries to introduce George to her parents, he suddenly swings in on a vine and accidentally crashes into the engagement cake, ruining it. During the party, Beatrice tells the guests that Lyle couldn't attend because he is away on business. At the party, many of the women are impressed by George's personality and his charming appearance. Later, Beatrice takes George aside and warns him to stay away from Ursula and not ruin her daughter's future. Just then, Tookie arrives in San Francisco and informs George that Ape has been kidnapped. That same night, while Ursula is asleep, George quietly leaves, giving her his lucky crocodile tooth before returning to the jungle. The next morning, when Ursula wakes up, she realizes that George has left without telling her. She becomes upset and worried. Beatrice tries to convince her that it's better this way, but Ursula realizes that her mother must have said something that made George leave. At that moment, she understands her true feelings, that she is in love with George, and decides to go back and find him. Beatrice tries to stop her, but her father supports her decision and lets her go in search of her true love. Back in the jungle, George returns straight to his treehouse. Meanwhile, Ape has been cleverly tricking Max and Thor for 2 days, making them wander in circles and eventually bringing them right back to the same treehouse. When George arrives and notices Ape's broken glasses, he realizes something is wrong and immediately starts fighting Max and Thor. The two of them gang up on George and mess with him, tickling him, making fun of him, and eventually forcing him to give up. Just then, Shep jumps in to help. Using his trunk, he lifts Tookie and knocks Thor from behind, then throws a coconut straight at Max's face. At that exact moment, Ursula Stanhope swings in on a vine and lands right in George's arms. She is just about to confess her love when suddenly Lyle appears. It turns out Lyle has escaped from jail, joined a strange cult, and even declared himself a minister. He forcefully takes Ursula with him and tries to marry her. George attempts to stop him, but Lyle orders his men to capture George. After that, he takes Ursula to the Ape River, where he prepares to escape by boat. Meanwhile, a small monkey gathers all the jungle animals and starts beating the bongos. Lyle's henchmen get distracted and trapped, giving George and Ape the chance to break free. Without wasting a second, George rushes to save Ursula, who is on the boat with Lyle. He swings in on a vine but crashes into a tree, causing it to fall across the river. During the chaos, he manages to rescue Ursula. At the same time, Lyle is inside a dark cave, continuing the wedding ceremony, unaware that Ursula has already escaped. In the end, he realizes, too late, that he has accidentally married a gorilla, which even leans in to kiss him. Finally, George and Ursula confess their love for each other. They get married, with Ursula's parents in attendance and all of George's animal friends present to celebrate. In the end, the film shows George and Ursula living happily in their treehouse with their young son. Meanwhile, the talking ape becomes a famous performer in Las Vegas, and Max and Thor end up working with him. That's it, friends. Hope you enjoyed this story. What was your favorite part? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Take care and thank you. Smiling face with smiling eyes.